Looks like the wind has calmed down today. I don't think there'll be any more destruction around the park area and stuff, but I guess we'll see. I was thinking of one thing funny yesterday about talking about the Spark and how, like, in Canada, well, regardless of the size of it and the fact they can do all these cool things, we still can't fly it here. And I was even asking Rick whether or not you would have bought it, because you said it's too bad it's not under 250, and you said you would have bought it for your oldest daughter if it was 249 grams. And then I was reading Brett's comments saying you were watching a video where they thought it was 303 grams. So that made me think in terms of the topic of safety, like the narrative for drones, and the weight in terms of what we can fly. Let's pretend it was 249 right now, like the Spark, so I can fly it anywhere. But let's say we wanted to make it more safe, like for the public, because usually the issue I've heard so far isn't so much about the crash, but the blades that are rotating that can cause like the most harm. So what happens if we add these propeller guards onto that Spark, where now it's like over 250? Now we can't fly it. So if you think about it, making something more safe just by adding additional weight to it makes it illegal, which doesn't make sense in many ways in my mind when I was thinking about that. You're basically encouraging people to strip off all the safety features as much as possible just to qualify to fly the thing. I even mentioned that before in the beginning, where I felt if it's about safety, then it should be more about, I guess, the features of the drone, because in many ways, I feel anyways, even a smaller one could be more dangerous than the bigger one if the bigger one has more safeguard features. I mean, in this case, it doesn't make no sense. I mean, if I was to compare it to a car, it'd be like saying, just to keep it underweight so that people can legally drive it, they have to take away the seatbelt or the airbag. And that says it doesn't make sense. Oh, it just makes me wonder again, when people draft these laws or whatever, what were they thinking when they're in the boardroom? Don't people like think of all these scenarios like before they push something out? And just to confirm, DJ, you were saying you thought this could have been a lightning that hit this tree, but there's no marks, and yeah, I don't see any marks. You know, I was thinking too, funny thing about this is because people often talk about drone flying and being able to capture stuff like in the country. I actually have a shot of this tree actually before all these dumb laws came in place where I can't fly it anymore. And it just makes me think people aren't going to be able to capture stuff like that anymore. Like for what? How long does it take for a tree to grow? Years and years and years? So it's one of those things, I think anyways, the more recreational drone flies there is to capture scenery and stuff, I mean, the better. Because like that, you can just change in a day, it'll be no longer there. Speaking of drone flying and all, I finally got another email about my DJI Mavic Pro battery, like that one that was bulging out. Looks like DJI is sending me the new one now. And also checked, yeah, I got the UPS label. It says I should be getting it within the beginning of next month. So that would be great. I mean, if I have to go to crazy places just to fly the drone, then you might as well have two batteries to try to capture as much footage as possible. And Solo, you were asking me if I knew when the Canada interim drone laws will get reviewed and updated. To my knowledge, just based on what I've seen so far, it's getting renewed reviewed every 14 days or so. I think this is on the 5th revision now, where they're just recycling the thing over and over and over again. But in generally speaking, if you're wondering about in terms of changing the laws in general, there's supposed to be something next month, like a permanent law. Like this thing that we have is supposed to be temporary, which again, in my opinion, is just a knee-jerk reaction. But hopefully by next month, you're supposed to see something new proposed, which to my knowledge, they say they encourage public discussion. So this will be interesting. Some of you were also saying you wanted me to talk about things like people getting investigated by the FAA, like irresponsible drone flyers, like on the YouTube community. What exactly is the area that you want to discuss in that, if that makes sense? I know recently the main things on my mind though in terms of law enforcement is something that Chester posted before. It was about something about in the US. They're proposing something that would give law enforcement the ability to take down drones if they feel it's a security threat. So I thought that's actually interesting to talk about. I couldn't talk about it yesterday because the Spark was on my mind, so I was trying to research it a bit more today. Again, this is in the US, not in Canada, but I'm always interested in, just finding out what's going on elsewhere in the world, because I wouldn't doubt if it will have an influence here as well. So if I'm understanding correctly, this is just a proposed bill, which gives, I guess, police officers the authority to seize a drone or shoot down a drone, which is what I'm reading a lot of the headlines are saying. It might be a bit sensationalized, but I guess technically that's what they would be allowed to do with the bill if it was passed. Like for me, I'm no lawyer, but this one's actually kind of a little confusing. It says the bill says privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties will still be have to be respected. At the same time, it says, but the bill also states that the courts would have no jurisdiction to hear lawsuits arising from the new rules. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm interpreting that as in, like, say a police officer can't just go up to you and say, hey, give me your drone just because I feel like it. Like, that's your own private property. But at the same time, I guess if they shot like a drone down, then you can't bring it to court or something. Am I understanding this correctly? Well, again, it's more for a lawyer, but that's how I kind of interpret this anyways when I read it. They're not sea lions, so I think it's okay to be that close, right? And thinking more about that US, the proposal of the law, it says here, like in one of the articles, and the potential for terrorists to use them to carry bombs or other weapons into secure areas is kind of the, I guess, the narrative to say, hey, you need something like this. Whenever I hear drone laws in other countries, I can't help but to think what we're going through here in Canada and whether or not it's overboard. Like for example, with this proposed law, if the notion is about danger flying over like security places and stuff like that, don't they already have the authority to, like, say, take down the drone if it's in a specific area? Like for example, let's just say it flew over a military base and you assume it's like some kind of threat or spy. Don't they already have permission to, like, to shoot down the drone if it goes into that area? So I'm trying to figure out, like, what is the need for this law exactly? I'm trying to think of something that's even like less over the top. Like if someone's, say, flying right near an airplane right now, like, isn't there like a general law where, regardless if it's a drone or whatever, you should, like, the authorities should have permission to confiscate it for whatever reason? And like the example of one of the person brought up when I GoPro landed in the stadium, like where we're talking about, well, what should happen to people like that? And the person brought up, well, he should be treated like the guy that flew the drone should just be treated just like some guy that runs into the field. Like same thing. Like I would imagine, isn't there already stuff like that to take care of drone flyers flying in restricted areas? Actually made me think of that YouTube video I saw before. It was about somebody, I don't know, like a cop for some reason wanted the guy's drone just because he thought flying it around the police station or something like that in the area was wrong. So he kept asking the guy for all his personal details, and the guy was refusing to do so because he said he's doing nothing wrong. So it makes me wonder, like in that case, if a law is written this way, does that mean that police officer can say, oh, I'm just going to compensate it because, in my opinion, I think that drone's like a bomb or being used for like some devious reason. So yeah, I'll be able to take it in. Like, is that what this is supposed to do? Like in that sense, I would be a little worried. Like it's understandable if it's like in a secure area, like in the US, like I said, if it's in like an army base or something. But again, like in my mind, am I missing something here? Wouldn't you already have the rights to take down that drone or anything else for that matter that goes across like a military base as an example? In some weird ways, it makes me wonder if people are like this with computers, where they're afraid everyone that had like a computer were using it to potentially hack into like every single government area and all that. Because in some ways I feel that the drones are a little bit overblown. In many ways it almost feels like, maybe it's just my opinion, but it feels like it's being treated like a firearm in many ways. In some ways too, it makes me think, isn't it better just to spend more time investing into finding ways to, I guess, countermeasures of devious drone flyers, if that makes sense? Kind of like that story I read where apparently there was like a prison or something like that, where it's in the UK, I believe, where they're developing something or placing something around the area that basically blocks out like signals, so like a drone can't fly in. Like, isn't it better to invest in that? Otherwise, if you're behind the times, like in that, if it's all about security, it reminds me of I believe one of the story before was someone was flying, like terrorists and like army and all that, someone was flying like a DJI drone, I believe, and the army or somebody fired like $1 million missile to take out, like, you know, a $1,000 or whatever drone. Like in that sense, I would say, okay, isn't it better to invest all this time just to find ways to deal with that in particular instead, as opposed to like all your energy on this, which probably, in my opinion, is probably too broad and affects, you know, like a regular person that just flies it for fun, like for myself as an example. It's like the saying too, I mean, go after the bad guys. I'm actually helping you trying to go after the bad guys, but if it's basically written in such a weird way, you're taking people like me out as well. Friendly fire, friendly fire. Will be interesting though if Canada has something like that here, because I know, again, like many of us, we feel the laws in the US actually make way more sense for the drone laws and all that. Will it happen? I don't know. Kind of interesting to see, I guess, how people in the US react with that, especially with all that FAA registration stuff recently too. Alright, looks like I might have time to go to that event tomorrow too, so that might be interesting. Alright, see you guys later.